You're listening to Homeschool Unrefined. I'm Maren.
And I'm Angela. Let's encourage each other, laugh, and get real about homeschool.
Welcome to the podcast where we keep homeschool simple, real, and fun. You've got episode 70, where we are brave writers with Julie Bogart.
Hi, everybody. We are so glad you're here. We love to have you come around every week, and we would love to be a support to you if you need support. So please feel free to reach out to us either through email or on our social media sites. We would just love to hear from you and connect with you.
Yeah.
And if you are loving our podcast, we would love it if you would write us a review in Apple Podcasts. And I just wanted to highlight one that we recently got. Thank you to everybody who is writing reviews, by the way. We appreciate that so much. So one that we recently got was from Jenny, and she says, if you homeschool or are thinking about it, listen to this podcast. I look forward to tuning in every week. Angela and Maren share real topics and bring helpful insight and encouragement for homeschooling families. They are so down to earth and have created an honest space for questions, making homeschool feel like something real families can do. Thank you for the podcast. You have a fan in South Dakota.
Wow.
So thank you, Jenny.
That is so nice.
Yeah. And Jenny, we'd love to have you reach out to us, through social media, because I don't know who you are.
Yeah, DM us.
Yeah.
On Instagram or something so we can find you.
Yeah.
Talk to you. Thank you so much for that. And again, to everybody else, that just means the world to us.
Yep.
That's why we do it.
Yep.
So that we can be there with you guys.
Yep.
We just want to be there. All right. So we wanted to make a quick announcement. We are going to be hosting an interview with Jamie Martin from simplehomeschool.net in a few weeks. So we are very excited for that interview. So stay tuned for that.
Yes. We would love to have you come back and listen to that. So Maren, last week, our episode was all about fighting. And we kind of just laid it out there that our kids fight. And
just being real.
And we talked about, how hard that was. And we got a lot of great feedback from a lot of listeners saying they were really happy to hear that because their kids fight too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Surprisingly.
I know. It's common.
Yeah.
So, do you have any new insights after that episode dropped?
As soon as we released that episode, I thought, I wish we could have talked more about reasons why kids fight. And I'm just saying that because there are so many reasons why kids fight. And we did not include, a fraction of them.
Right. Yeah.
In the episode. You just can't cover it all.
Yeah.
But I just want to acknowledge that if we did not cover the reasons why your kids fight, it's still okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. I mean, if we didn't say that in the last episode, we all, there are just so many reasons, and there's no guilt, there's no shame, and we know, we get it.
It doesn't mean that you are doing something wrong. And or that you're, failing in some way, which is what I think. Like this morning when my kids fought a couple times, I, even though I just did this episode and listened to it again, I still have a tendency to think, oh, what am I doing wrong? I must be doing something wrong because this is still an issue. And I get really down on myself for it.
Yeah. And I start to think this is dysfunction. This is dysfunction. This is a dysfunctional family. And I don't like that, and it's not the truth.
No, it's not.
Fighting is a normal growth. It's a stage of growth, right? We're all going through this stages of growth. So
right. I can say that like thinking about your family or somebody else's family.
Yeah,
I can.
Exactly.
I can say, yeah, that is right. This does not mean that you're doing anything wrong. Your kids are growing and learning, and what a great experience. When it's my kids, I don't know. I have a real hard time being okay with it and looking at it that way, like from an outside perspective.
Right.
I get down.
I know. Well, that's why I like doing this podcast because I feel like we pick topics that are real close to our heart, obviously.
Yeah.
Like fighting. And we can process it together and then get it out in the open. And it's not, I feel like I'm part of a community of people we're all dealing with this.
Right. Right.
and it's okay.
Right. Yeah, and I need to be gentle with myself because
Definitely.
I can give some like really good advice to friends, but then when it comes
Yes.
to myself, it's just
Yep.
it's hard to give myself that same,
Yeah.
encouragement. So,
So true. You do need to tell yourself the same things you're telling other
right.
people,
I know. Yeah.
which is hard,
It's so hard.
but so important.
Yeah.
hmm We are so excited to start this episode where we get to talk with Julie Bogart
Yeah.
from Brave Writer.
Yeah.
So she created this, I don't know if it's a program, but I mean, it's really just an all-encompassing, could be a philosophy kind of homeschool. And it's just so freeing and inspiring.
Right. Right. She has a knack for showing us a way to spark learning and like authentic learning in your children
Yes.
through
Spark the love.
Yeah,
of
spark the
learning.
love of learning. Yeah, she has a way of showing us that because I know sometimes I know that that's what I should be doing or want to be doing, but it's hard to envision what that looks like. And so she gives us some real simple tools and
Yes.
hacks kind of that make it easier for me to model that.
Yeah, and just hearing, that it's okay to not do it the way everyone else is doing it is sometimes all I need to hear.
Right.
That she did it this other way and it worked out so well.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
she always has words of wisdom.
Right.
So enjoy this interview. Well, Julie, we want to thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to talk with both of you.
Good. So, we found you probably about the same time Angela and I both started homeschooling full time, and we started this podcast, and we found you and we thought, oh my goodness, there's somebody out there who is really on board with what we're thinking. And it was so exciting to us. I wouldn't say we're unschooling, but, we have probably some behaviors of unschooling, and we're definitely all about, children-led and inspiring and sparking the love of learning. And when we found you, we just we're so happy.
That's wonderful. I love hearing that. I think one of the common questions I get is whether Brave Writer or my own philosophy of education was unschooling specifically. I think really it is more that notion that we are drawing on our children's aptitudes and interests and passions. I think that's really what undergirds. And I have come to believe that there's a variety of strategies that helps us bring those into being. Unschooling is one way that a lot of parents enjoy, but it isn't the only way. There are lots of educational tools we can use to support our children's development. And so I'm glad that you felt like you resonated with some of those.
Yes, definitely. And I just, when we got your materials at the beginning, we just thought, okay, now I feel like I can move forward. We can move forward with this homeschooling thing. Here we go.
That's amazing. What's funny when you said that is I remember being on unschooling email lists back in the 1990s and early 2000s. And one of the things that I found perplexing at the time is that people asked common questions like, well, how do you teach a child to read without using curriculum? Or how do you teach math facts without working with flashcards? And there was a sort of dearth of help. It was a lot, almost as though it was magic. Like if you just create enough of an environment, it would automatically happen. And I noticed over time that what I needed were handholds. I needed someone to actually model what it looks like to create a good environment for math, or model what it looks like to create an environment for reading, and what it looks like in the parent-child dynamic to actually teach a skill, not to just assume that they would get it by osmosis, because not all kids do. So part of my goal all the time is to just sort of lay a path or create a vision through steps or through a practice or a project so that a parent could catch the vision and then even adapt it for themselves. But now at least they have some idea of what it looks like in a practical way.
Right.
Yes.
And I think we as parents, when we're homeschooling, we do need to catch on to somebody else's confidence because we know we know we need it, and we know it's out there. We just don't have it ourselves sometimes.
Yes. And you do such a good job at that, at modeling the environment.
Yes.
And model that, you call it the Brave Writer lifestyle. So you do such a good job of modeling what that looks like exactly for us, so that we can create something similar.
I love hearing that. I just spent the weekend with one of my kids, my fourth child, who's about to graduate from college in less than a month. And he was the one who started college late. We did an extra year of junior high school. He took his time. He had dysgraphia when he was young. There was a period where he wasn't even using his own pencil. And we were talking about his sort of non-traditional education. We were sitting at dinner with his best friend and his best friend's parents, and this child has been in school for 16 years. And his mother, the friend's mother, said, by the time you end college, you're just so sick of school, and you've been doing it for so long. What an achievement. And Liam said back to her, I've done about 2.5 years of traditional school before I got to college, and I am sick of 4 more years. Like, I want to go back to just lifestyle of learning where I could just do whatever I wanted. It was just kind of an interesting validation of that whole journey, that he sees his life not as having been this rigid school experience, but open to learning at the pace and rate and according to the interests that were his. And it's produced a kid who excelled really well in this great books program, which is not easy. They're reading thousands of pages a year of ancient, philosophy and writing these really long papers. Yeah. So encouraging to me. I didn't know this would be the outcome,
Okay, I was just going to ask you, when he was younger, did you see this in his future?
No. Okay. No, not even a bit. No, not even a bit. In fact, the school, St. John's College, I took my oldest son to it, Noah, when he was a junior or senior in high school, thinking he might like it. And he visited and came home and he said, no way, I'm not reading all those old books. That's not my thing. So then I just let the dream go. I thought none of my children will ever want this. And Liam, who wasn't even sure he wanted to go to college when he finished high school, took a whole year off and traveled and worked, and then one day started researching alternative colleges. And he's the one who brought up St. John's again to me. And I was like, really?
Wow.
You want that? And he has absolutely thrived under that circumstance. So sometimes, it's like my daughter. She's graduating with a linguistics degree from University of Pittsburgh in 2 weeks. And she didn't read till she was over 9, almost 10. Yeah. So sometimes these things that we obsess about when they're young, they have a way of working themselves out. They also have more time to, quote unquote, catch up. They sometimes don't see themselves as flawed. And that's the most critical aspect of the home education, is that you aren't treating them like there's a problem. If you can do that, you give them lots of options.
Exactly. Oh, that is so good. So let's just start at the beginning. Do you want to just tell everybody who might not know you yet a little bit about yourself and the work that you've been doing?
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So my name's Julie Bogart. I started our company Brave Writer back in January of 2000. But before I even began it, I was a freelance writer and editor. I worked on magazines, book editing, ghostwriting, freelance dissertation editing. I did all kinds of different freelance jobs. I wrote for the Wet Set Gazette, La Leche League magazine, those kinds of things. But what I really discovered in my homeschool journey is that parents did not seem to have confidence in teaching their kids to write. And yet, even though my kids had struggles, I did have confidence because I was following the principles and practices of professional writing. Mm-hmm. And it occurred to me at the end of the 1990s, through the request of a close friend, I offered this weekly class for moms at her request. And I realized that the things I was teaching were not familiar. I assumed everybody knew about free writing. I assumed everybody knew not to blend mechanics and original writing right out of the gate. I assumed that parents were not being scrupulous about grammar when their kids were first learning to write. I didn't know that everybody was working through this rigid structure, thinking that would release the writers within them. So in about 2000, I wrote this book called The Writer's Jungle, which is our core manual. And it did very well at the very first convention I went to. I taught 4 classes and we sold this stock of books and I was in shock. I came home, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm onto something.
Yeah.
And we started these online classes and they filled up every time. And by the second year, we had already hired a second teacher. And,
Wow.
it's just been growing ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was definitely a hole to fill there in the homeschool community for sure.
Yes.
I think so often the traditional approach to writing is what we remember from school. It's the red pen, it's teaching the structure of a paragraph more than teaching kids how to access their insight. And what Brave Writer's about is finding what you have to say. We can worry about what shape to put it in once we know you have something worth sharing. But when kids aren't in touch with having anything to say, the structure just feels like a straitjacket and they fill it up with dull, lifeless writing just to get it over with.
Yes.
Yep, absolutely.
That's what I did as a child. I don't think anybody ever tried to get me to figure out what I had to say.
Right.
That wasn't ever taught. So I love
Right.
I love doing that with my kids. That is so fun. What are you excited about? What do you already know about? Let's think about that.
Yeah. I remember when I was in 11th grade, my my English teacher said, just write what you know about. And I was like, write what I know about. So brilliant.
Well, that's the oldest advice for prose is write what you know. And of course, I will often get parents who say back to me, yes, but what about assigned writing? They're going to go to college. They won't always get to pick their topics. And what I like to remind them, or at least inform them about if they don't know, is that natural writers always tweak the assignment to what they know. So it isn't ever a script. When I was a history major at UCLA and I would be given a topic, let's say it was World War II or something like that, I was going to write about the themes of war. I was going to write about the human suffering because those were always interesting to me. I was never going to feel compelled to write about battle strategies. Those were not my areas. And pretty much any writing assignment you get can be tweaked to the areas that are most fascinating to you. And most professors are looking for that. So even when we're in assigned writing as a condition, we still can write what we know, or at least what we aspire to know. And then we do research so that we do know it well enough to write about.
Yeah.
Love that.
That's great. That is so great. So on our podcast, Maren and I love talking about personality types. It's kind of one of our passions, and it's something you're interested in too. So we thought we'd chat a little bit about it. Do you know your Myers-Briggs or Enneagram types?
I know them both. On Myers-Briggs, I'm an ENFP, and I just want to point out, so is Bono, so that's awesome.
And so am I. I'm an ENFP
is Maren.
also. Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's fabulous. High five
I
to
didn't
you.
know Bono.
Yeah, now don't you even feel better about
I
yourself?
feel cooler. Much cooler.
Yeah, exactly. A man with a mission, my secret doppelganger. But then my Enneagram type is a 4. But what I've been told is I'm a sunny 4. So the traditional 4 tends to be very moody and temperamental and melancholic. The sunny 4 is more like, surprisingly, someone like Joan of Arc or people who are willing to endure pain because they are overly optimistic about their chances of survival. So that's the part that I find funny about me. The way that I realized finally that I was a 4 is I was reading a profile, and one of the characteristics was that some 4s love long distance running, like marathons. And I was like, just had completed my 4th marathon. I also had all my babies at home, unmedicated, no episiotomies, right? Yes. And I started looking backwards and I was like, my gosh, do I aspire to a painful life? This just seems to be endemic to how I see myself. So I really got interested in the 4 from that perspective at that point.
Well, and also maybe as a 4, you thought, I am going to blaze my own trail here and be different and start this new way of homeschooling. Or not new to you, but new to many people.
No, you're right. That seeking out to be special or to do sort of the countercultural thing is absolutely part of that whole package for sure. Yeah,
and
no doubt.
You're also very, fours are artistic and creative, and I see that in you too. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
What are you?
I am an ISFJ,
Okay.
and I'm also an Enneagram 6. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, do you know
That's
know
awesome.
all the different types too?
I
Are you
do.
pretty familiar?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. It's a big deal in our family. My two daughters are both 6s, which
Oh,
is really
really?
interesting to me.
That is
Yes.
interesting. Yeah. So when somebody tells you their type, you're like, I know so much about you. Because you know
Isn't
the
it
types.
an amazing tool?
It's amazing.
Yeah,
I
and
love how it depersonalizes behavior. So if you can see your children or your spouse with some insight without judging it or without seeing it as a flaw or a character
taking
defect.
it personally.
Exactly. Yes. It's wonderful to use personality for that.
Yeah. And I am an ENFP and I'm an Enneagram 7. And I'm also with the Gretchen Rubin's tendencies, I'm a rebel. So
oh my goodness.
Gosh, I know.
You're almost intolerable, right?
It's hard to pin me down, really.
But
that's
a lot of fun. Like everyone wants to hang around you.
Yeah. She's very popular.
I like to have fun, that's for sure. But I think that's why I was really drawn to your curriculum too. I mean, I just felt like so much freedom. I felt like, the first month of homeschooling for me, I read the first chapter of the Writer's Jungle. And I just felt like, okay, I can just move on now. This is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. And I didn't feel like, I remember you said in that book, if you feel like you need more structure, here are some other books you could use. And at that point, that was too much for me. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go with this philosophy right now. we're just going to use this. And it was so good for me.
I love hearing that. Sometimes, I will hear back from the more structured temperaments asking for more handholds because I think really what happens is we lack confidence. One of the things I like to remind parents is that they're already very skilled at drawing out language from their children. They've successfully taught their children to speak the native language fluently without any organized system. And I share a lot at conferences about my oldest child, Noah, who, when he was 11 months old, he said his first word. I was standing at the kitchen sink, and I heard him in his high chair behind me, and he said, Nana. And I wheeled around, and I said, oh, my goodness, I have a brilliant child. He said his first word. He's only 11 months. But then I realized Nana wasn't really a word. So I said to him, hey, Noah, you know what? Nana is a part of a word, and the word is banana. It's a noun. Goes in a sentence like this. You need to say, I would like a banana. And because it is a request, you need to use the oral format called etiquette. So you need to say, I would like a banana, please. And when I talk about this at conferences, people always laugh. And I say, now, is that what I did? And they all know instantly that I did not do that. There is absolutely no doubt that is not how I taught him to speak. So then I love to follow up and share what I did do, and I'm sure you did it as well. I ran and got the baby book. I made him eat 6 bananas. I made an international call to my mother. I told his father to come downstairs, and we didn't call a banana for the next 6 months. We only called it Nana, trying to get him to do it again, right?
And we almost do the opposite as parents, where we want them to say those cute words forever. Like, don't change it. Don't get it right.
Well, exactly. And interestingly, if you go back and you look through, your baby books or whatever, you'll see words like jacuzzi and biscotti because we thought they were so cute. My little great nephew last week called a watermelon popsicle, what did he say? A lemon water. Oh my gosh, what was the other word? A lemon water upsicle or something like that. Like it was exactly not the words. And his mother just thought that was adorable, shared it on Instagram. So that's what we do with speech. But then the first time our child writes because, B-E-C-U-Z, we freak out. We don't go write it in the baby book and date it and talk about how cute it was and use it as the wrong spelling for a while. Because we're so terrified our children are going to make mistakes in writing. And what I want us to do is sort of recapture some of that ease that we had with speech and trust the process and celebrate every writing risk the same way we did with speech.
Right. And we've talked about this on our podcast before about how it is such a high skill to, first of all, just get the ideas in your mind, but to get them out of your mind on, use your hand to scribble them out on a piece of paper is such a high level skill.
Right.
I mean, it's like the last step of writing, right?
Right.
Absolutely. And you're requiring a fluent native speaker to do it. So their sentence structure, their vocabulary, the complexity of the ideas they want to share way outpaces the mechanics. I mean, by a huge margin. So they have started speaking fluently before they even learn to read. And yet we're expecting them to transmit that fluent speech down an arm, through fingers, out a pencil, with perfect, handwriting, sometimes cursive, with capital letters and periods. And then we wonder why we get really dull comments like, I love roller coasters, after they've just given us, a 20-minute narration on the Viper. And that's what we have to remember, is that we are nurturing the mechanics simultaneously to that oral communication. And it's over time that those two come together seamlessly.
Absolutely. Yep. So
Takes 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And we have to remember we are not there yet. We're not all there yet. So
that's right.
So good. So for someone who's maybe never, held a Brave Writer book, how would you describe it to them? Is it a curriculum or a philosophy or a genre of homeschooling? How would you describe it to people?
That's such a great question. I think when I talk about the kind of life you want to live in your home, I call it a lifestyle, because I want you to have a language-rich environment, right? So it'd be great to have books everywhere and to watch movies together and to celebrate what we call poetry tea time, where you set a table and you eat snacks and drink tea and read poems to each other, and you go to the theater and you visit the art museum and you take nature hikes. Like, to me, that creates this context for language eruption and a rich diet of reading and speech and all of it together. But when we're talking about the products, I think I tend to use the word program, even though I'm a little uncomfortable with that. I'm worried about it becoming a program in the sense that people are looking for a start and a finish date and boxes to check. On the flip side, the truth of the matter is I've created tools sort of like to create that vision we talked about earlier of what it looks like to implement the lifestyle to produce something tangible. Parents don't want to just hope that writing growth is happening. They want to hold something in their hands. They want to see at the end of the year that their children have made some kind of measurable progress. We only feel peaceful when we can measure. And so even the most radical unschooler is measuring. They may be using a different reference point than the total type A book-oriented teacher. But everybody's measuring. They're reassuring themselves all the time. So what Brave Writer program is it's a variety of tools that teach the individual skills associated with writing in a manner that allows a parent to catch the vision for what it looks like to have a writing life. So we have a model that I like to explain to parents. Do you mind if I do that now? Because I think it would help.
We would love it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what we call our model is the writing triangle. And I'm like sitting here making a triangle with my fingers. So if you have a scratch piece of paper or you want to imagine it in your mind, picture a regular isosceles triangle. And then what you are going to picture in the left-hand corner are the words mechanics and literature. And in the right-hand corner, you're going to picture the words original thought. And at the beginning of the writing life, mechanics and thought are the furthest apart they will ever be. So we teach the mechanics separately. We use someone else's writing to teach mechanics. We use living literature, and we do the practices of copy work and dictation drawn from wonderful books to help our kids slowly learn spelling, handwriting, punctuation, grammar, indentation, dialogue quotes. We use somebody else's writing so that they aren't troubled by the complexity of their own thought lives. But over on that right-hand side, original thought is alive and well. It's just it needs a secretary. And so I draft you, the parent, to be that secretary. And during this early stage at the base of the triangle, the distance between mechanics and original thought is taken up by you. That space is represented by you, the parent. In fact, the middle of the triangle is you, the parent. But here's the magic. Here's what happens. As your child gains skill in the mechanics, they start moving up at an angle, up that triangle side on the left. And as original thought becomes more capable of being written by the child, it also moves up at an angle toward the apex. And at the top of that triangle, I have the words writing projects. So here's the goal. When they bring mechanics and original thought all the way together, they're an adult in college doing writing projects without your help. That's the top of the triangle.
Okay.
So it's not when they're 8. It's not when they're 8.
Nope. They're going to need you the whole way. So if you picture your child traversing up the sides of those triangles, your role, which starts out taking up the whole bottom line, slowly shrinks as you come up the sides of the triangle, as mechanics and original thought come together and the child can do more and more on their own. So our projects are built with this 3-pronged idea in mind. We have products that take a book and supply you with 4 copywork and dictation passages to work on mechanics and read aloud. We have the writer's jungle that focuses on how to encourage original thought to show up in the writing process. And then we have writing project products that allow you to do the original thought mechanics together according to the developmental skill level of your child. And you will be helping your children execute those projects at their level. Is that clear?
That's great. I've never heard you describe it like that before. I know you probably have. I just haven't heard it. So I think that is a great visual. I love it. And I love that you aren't done till college. So
no,
that gives us freedom. That's awesome. Yeah, I love that.
It's a model that we are actually working on right now to add to the Brave Writer website. It's something I've been talking about in conferences. We've actually developed the model now, but I've started to notice how helpful it is. And I think that's what we're trying to do, is help people understand, because most writing programs are based on scope and sequence, grade level and age level. And we don't care about that. You could have a child who's 14 and still really needing you to transcribe for them because they struggle with the mechanics, or they're not a strong reader, or they've been resistant or damaged based on the tools you've used before. And so if we all start where the child actually is, not where we think they should be, we make really rapid progress if the child is older. It's just, I've seen kids go from 16 to 18 where the parent is transcribing for them at a 16-year-old level, and they're ready for college in 2 years. Wow. So I love to reassure parents, if you've damaged your child's writing or you've just neglected them, it's okay. They can learn it all in 2 years between 16 and 18. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
That is awesome. But what you don't want to do is at 16 say, okay, you're on your own. You got to start.
No.
You need to be writing everything on your own, right? Because they're not going to get there.
Absolutely not. That's right. It would be like saying to a child who never learned to ride a bike, okay, well, you're on your own. Go get the bike yourself. Go buy yourself a bike and learn how to ride it. No training wheels, no one helping you, Put
yourself in a race or something.
Or another example I love to use is you put your kid on a bike, and the second they learn how, you take away the bike and hand them a unicycle. There's this feeling all the time like our children should be working harder than they're ready for. That is sort of the feeling of education, and we don't want that.
Right. It's so hard, though, too, because most of us come from a traditional school mentality. And so that's what we see happening in these traditional schools. And so it's really hard to separate from that and see a different way, that there is a different way to do things. It's really hard. Right. So I feel for people.
Oh, my gosh, I do, too. And the truth is, even as a writer and someone writing a program, it's so easy to suddenly feel like you're doing a bad job. I mean, I was sitting at those soccer games with the moms with the 4th grade packets talking about, the narrative essay their child wrote. And I'm thinking, all we do is free write. I felt the pressure of those things. It isn't, I'm not immune to any of it either. And trust is hard to come by when you don't have a lot of reputation in front of you to confirm what you're doing. So we've all got to keep broadcasting our successes to give each other courage to keep trying. And we also need to tell our truths so that when there are problems, we go to solve them. We don't go to hide them to pretend.
Exactly.
Pretending ruins families, education, your relationship, your child's self-confidence. So if something doesn't work, like we'll have an occasional parent say, my child hated free writing, I welcome that.
Right.
We can't solve the writing dilemma if the parent feels like they have to pretend like free writing worked for every child. This is about your child, not about protecting the reputation of a program.
Yes.
So good.
I love what you said about broadcasting your successes too, because you do that, which I really appreciate how you talk about your kids. And because it gives me, it just reassures me. It tells me, okay, yep, her kids are doing great. My kids will probably do great, you know? And because otherwise we can feel like, I don't know. And you probably felt like this because I don't know how many people you had ahead of you. So I'm sure it was hard for you, but I'm glad that people are ahead of me broadcasting their successes so that I can feel confident in what I'm doing.
Well, and it's important to remember that there is no such thing as success without complications. So even when I have 5 kids who at this stage of their lives look like they're doing pretty well, we have a joke in our family that they just rotate who is dealing with a crisis. You know, when you have 5 kids, there's always somebody who has a need, whether it has something to do with school or money or career or a heartbreak or, you know, whatever it is. I mean, this is just the nature of being human. Right. So part of what I also want to project is that success isn't about making it without a flaw or failure or a misstep. Sometimes those missteps are the biggest teachers of all, and we want to embrace those as well.
Yeah, I love it.
So
let's say that some of our listeners are really curious about Brave Writer. We've sparked their interest, and they may feel overwhelmed about where to start. And so I'm wondering, where is a good place for them to start?
Great question. So if they go to bravewriter.com, our homepage of our website, we have a little 7-day writing excursion that is free. It's called the 7-day Writing Blitz. Super different than anything you've done before. The first day of the Writing Blitz is called graffiti, and we literally do tell them to write on everything, including, you know, the top of tuna cans and the windows and the mirror and all of it. But it is designed to flip the script on writing, to help your kids discover writing from a completely different vantage point than the one they're currently experiencing. And so you could start with that. That's completely free, doesn't cost you anything. And then when parents ask me, well, what's a good step after that? We do recommend the Writer's Jungle. That is our core program. It is the one that helps parents transform their understanding of the writing life. It gives them a paradigm shift. Yep. Do not be intimidated. It's over 200 pages. Do not read all of it at the beginning. You can do it one chapter at a time. Read a chapter, do what's in it, go to the next chapter.
So good.
Yep.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. I love it.
So, Julie, I know after reading some of your things, you advocate for watching family movies together and watching movies. I mean, screens are not the devil or the worst thing in the world, which is so good. We just had an episode about where we have all the feels about screens and technology and things like that. So I'm wondering, what is your philosophy on screen time?
Such a great question. You know, I just turned in the manuscript for a book I have coming out next year. And one of the interesting conversations I had with my agent and my editor was around screens. They asked me what my philosophy was, and both of them were really hoping I was going to talk about all these restrictions. I said, just wait till I turn in the manuscript. You'll see what I think, because they were flabbergasted. They thought being home all day and doing homeschooling would mean that I had to really restrict screens even more than the typical school parent. But what I discovered literally over time, and you have to understand, we started homeschooling before the internet. So we went from no television. I did not have a TV. We had no computers, no internet, to kids who were gaming, sometimes 6 or 8 hours in a day. So this was a massive journey for me. So what I'm about to share is the fruit of heartache, tears, restrictions, taking away the computer for months at a time, telling my children that I was uncomfortable, banning certain kinds of music. I mean, I've done it all. I don't want you to think I had this well-formed philosophy my entire life. Here's where I've come to, and really what I believe about technology, period. Every generation is afraid of the newest technology.
Yes.
We don't know what it is. So we hearken back with a false nostalgia to a simpler time, which was no less simple. It was no more simple and no more, free of complications. And we pretend that what we knew in childhood was the safe thing, and what we're facing as adults is the unsafe thing. I remember being a TV viewer and being told over and over that our brains were being rotted, that our eyes were too close to the screens, that we shouldn't watch television. And all of those parents who told us that now are addicted to cable news, and they are in their 70s and they watch round the clock. So one of the things that I believe about technology is that we need to handshake technology. We need to say to technology, I want to be your friend. I want to understand the role you can play in my life. I don't want to be afraid of you. And then from that perspective, we want to develop self-awareness about the role of that technology in our lives. Self-awareness, not parent awareness of somebody else's self, but the self that is our children. So we need to ask questions of our kids. For instance, one of the things that I hear parents say a lot is, well, I know my son is addicted to video games. It makes him really miserable. He'll play and be in a bad mood for the rest of the day. Therefore, he can't be on the game. But you know what I've noticed? Everyone hates losing in a game, whether it's a soccer tournament or a Halo tournament. And when they're in a bad mood from soccer, we take them out for pizza and we help them feel better. And when they're in a bad mood from losing in Halo, we call it addiction. And we say to our kids, you shouldn't play, it's bad for you. Anytime we are deeply invested in something, we are risking disappointment, obsession, the feeling of wanting to master it. And that is what's going on in most of the gaming that I see kids engaged in.
That is so interesting. I had not thought of it that way, about how we do that. When somebody loses in soccer, we take them out for pizza.
I know.
I don't think about that with the games. That's something to think about. I appreciate
we
that.
We don't often choose companionship and comfort when we are suspicious of the source of that child's emotions. So it's one thing to support and comfort someone when we understand, like if a child is reading a book and they hate the ending and they cry, we come in because we have all these resources in our memory of what it means to get over a book where we were so immersed and so involved, it's ruined our mood for the next 6 weeks, right? Yeah. We have experiences of watching our favorite sporting teams get beat in the Super Bowl or in the playoffs. And so when our kids suffer a loss, we know how to comfort that. We know what that feels like. But for a lot of us who do not share in the immersive world of video gaming, we see it as this invisible source of an emotional life that we have no participation in or control over, and we fear it. And so then what we want to do is get them back into the world where we can witness the source of their emotions so that we can control them. And it is only through joining them, being a part of that immersive world with them, that we can start to be a true resource to them.
Right. That is so profound. I'm going to think about this for so long. This is really good. And then also, I just love what you've talked about too, just about movies, about they are also not awful. And watching a movie can be like reading a book in so many
100%.
ways. You go through all the parts of the story, and you
100%.
You learn so much.
We call film the contribution, the 20th century contribution to literature. There will be classes in elementary, junior high, and high school taught on film. There already are in college, but that's coming because we're already 100 years into the catalog of film. Film
Right,
is
right.
its own genre every bit as much as music, poetry, or novels. And so
Right,
what
right.
we want to do is appreciate film. Doesn't mean we have to watch every, ridiculous TV reality show that's ever been on, although I have to admit I am a fan of The Bachelor. So I
Yeah.
watch some of those ridiculous shows just for entertainment. But what I want to
Mhm.
say is this. We need to start evaluating the role these play first in our own lives. Why are we watching TV? Why do we go to the movies and spend money? Why do we sometimes watch some movies over and over? If there
Mhm.
is merit and value for us as adults, then why do we suddenly act suspicious of it with our children? If we
Right,
can
right.
sit
Yeah.
together and watch a film and talk about it, we had this habit in our family started by my kid's dad, which was kind of hilarious. We would always pause the film over and over throughout the film, maybe 2 to 3 times, saying things like, "Who are you rooting for? Who are you rooting against? Why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think's going to happen? What needs to happen for this story to be over? Do you think it will happen?"
Oh, yeah.
Now, when it ended, do you think that was a good decision on the part of the writer? Because this is how you help your kids actually be involved with the film rather than just passively receiving it. And they have
Absolutely.
opinions, and that
Mhm.
creates and
So
builds
many great
self-awareness.
discussions.
Yes,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah,
exactly.
for sure. All
Yeah,
right.
one of our best. I'll just throw this in. One of our best
Yeah.
movie discussions of all time was about Nacho Libre. So, doesn't have to be a highbrow film in order to generate reams of great conversation.
There's a lot to dig into there.
Julie, you also talk a lot, and this is surprising to some people, about when you talk about it with poetry tea time, about sitting around and having some brownies or some cookies with your tea while you're reading poetry to kind of entice them, because who doesn't want brownies, right? And I would love to hear you talk about kind of your reasoning behind that and why, and you giving us permission to do that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I call it sweetening the deal. Sometimes we have this agenda over here and we just assume that our children will share our agenda because we're their parents and we say it's important. But, kids have their own agenda and they love parties. They love the feeling of preparing, of making something special. They love to eat. They're all starving all the time, pretty much. So it occurred to me after reading on this one Charlotte Mason email list that I could throw these tea parties. There was a mom who had paired tea time with reading about geography terms. And I remember thinking, well, what do I value? I mean, my daughter loves tea time. My son drinks tea with me every morning. What do I value? Well, I valued poetry. And I was worried that they were going to think poetry was this opaque school subject, just like most people, and never love it. So I thought, well, if I pair it with a tea party, maybe I can suck them in. And that's exactly what happened. We stacked up the books, we made the tea, I made brownies or scones or whatever it was, and lit candles because, that just changes the whole feel. And by just recasting poetry in this new context, they were completely receptive. I didn't treat it like a school subject. I didn't treat it like something I thought they should care about. I actually treated the morning like it was something for them. And then I happened to just bring my favorite thing to the table. So, we have this little hashtag in Brave Writer that is hashtag add brownies. When all else fails, add brownies.
Yeah.
And really, that's just a reminder to remember that your kids are on a different wavelength than you. Let's appeal to what makes them happy. Using our tools, having a new perspective, being tactile, eating something yummy, changing the venue, leaving the house. These are things that help set a context for receptivity.
Yes.
Yeah.
So good. We have added so many poem books to our collection just because of Poetry Tea Time.
Yes.
Because it's popular and
Fabulous.
people want more now. So,
well, if people
wonderful.
are interested, I feature Poetry Tea Times from around the world on our Instagram account, which is just Poetry Tea Time. And you can see lots of examples and book recommendations and just so many ways that people do that experience together.
That is so good. So, Julie, after homeschooling your children for 17 years?
Correct.
So what's the best piece of advice that you would give to a family who's maybe just starting out or right in the middle of homeschooling right now?
I would say that what I wish someone had told me was that it was okay to experiment. I think I felt like I was supposed to pick a lane and stay in it. Like, I'm an unschooler. I'm a Charlotte Mason. I'm an eclectic with this emphasis. I'm going to use this curriculum for the rest of my life. I'm only going to homeschool. We'll never use part of the public schools. I'll never hire a tutor.
Yes.
And what I wish is that someone had told me I was going to form this unique family story around education that was suited to each of my children, that was going to draw on multiple streams of insight, that I should fully participate in curating a philosophy of education, and that it could be mine. I didn't have to get approval from some discussion leader on some homeschooling board somewhere. I didn't have to live up to someone else's definition of what it meant to be this kind of homeschooler. I could actually be Julie Bogart, who researched education, loved her children, and came up with a life that matched all of us.
That's awesome.
That is so freeing too. And I think we all need to do that. We all need to do that.
Well, you know what's
Find
crazy?
Our own,
We're doing it anyway, but we just feel bad about it all the time.
Undercover.
That is what's happening, right?
Right.
So true.
Yeah. So after homeschooling all those years, when you look back, is there anything that you wish you could change or would have done differently?
There is one thing. When I got attracted to unschooling, we did something I regret. And this is a pretty funny story. I don't think I've shared this before, so you guys are getting a good scoop. So I was looking into unschooling because my oldest son, Noah, really, his temperament is just a natural unschooling temperament. And I was noticing that I was starting to crush him again. I went through these cycles where I would get a lot looser and freer, and then I'd sort of buckle down, and then he'd get unhappy, and we'd loosen up. So I finally did like the in earnest research on unschooling. I started reading unschooling books and magazines and participating in these lists. And my kid's dad and I would have these long conversations about education. He loves educational theory too. And we finally became fully persuaded, this is what we're going to do. We're going to stop designing the program, and we're going to stop teaching according to any kind of schedule at all. We're going to follow our children's passions and trust that it will all work out. So what we did is we woke up our kids the next morning after we made this big decision. We took them all out for pancakes. And we announced at breakfast, this is what's happening. There is no more plan. You get to do whatever you want. You can learn whatever you want. We will support you, but you don't ever have to do any more math books, no more spelling book, like whatever it was that was the routine was over. No more copy work, no more dictation. Two of my kids cheered. So Noah and Liam, if you know them, that's totally appropriate. They're like, yes, the dream. I can play on the computer and not do handwriting and whatever. But no, Jacob and Johanna felt abandoned. They loved having a stack of things to do each day. They liked the guidance. They liked proof that they were getting an education according to the standards that other kids had. But I did not perceive that that's what was going on. And so there was a couple 3-month period, maybe even longer, where they were sort of internally floundering with this change. And they didn't have me to support them through it. And what I regret was making a declaration. What I wish I had done is just had loosened the reins a little for the older ones gently over time and continued to provide what the two who really needed me, and the youngest at that point, it didn't matter. And really, that is what ended up happening. Once I caught on to the fact that they were feeling sort of abandoned, not supported, then we sort of remodified everything again. But that's an example of this all or nothing pendulum swinging, needing to identify too strongly with one philosophy for all kids that I find unhelpful.
Yeah.
That's really good advice. I think it's so good. Kids are not always great at, those big changes, right? And so to have just a few little changes at a time, go one step this way, one step this way is Yeah, much more helpful. I can
Much
see that
better.
for sure. But I've done the same thing in
Oh,
so many times.
In other ways.
In
Yep.
so many ways.
Well, we do these big pendulum swings when we're
Oh, yeah.
insecure, and
Yeah.
you feel like
Exactly.
you have to catch up, like you're behind suddenly, or you're trying to clamp down on a
Yes.
behavior that you don't want to see happening, instead of having a little patience and a little trust to sort of work it out over time.
Right.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, anytime something's not going well in our house, I just think we need to revamp everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Throwing everything out, starting all over.
Right.
It's just not the right answer.
No.
All right. So our last question is not even about homeschool, but it's just we know you really like Friends, the show.
Yes.
And we
How embarrassing.
love Friends.
Oh, good.
We do,
Angela
too.
and I.
We love
Oh, yeah.
Friends.
Yes, Angela and I, became good friends watching Friends.
Oh, that's amazing.
Did we? Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Kind of.
We strengthened our friendship
We
watching Friends.
strengthened our friendship watching Friends.
And sometimes
So-
we like have too many references on this show.
Right.
I don't know if
An
people are tired of
embarrassing
it.
amount. Too many. For people who are younger than us, they're probably just annoyed. So, do you have a favorite episode of Friends?
Well, I really love the one where they all find out about Chandler
yeah.
and Monica. I just think that Lisa Kudrow and Matthew Perry
Yep.
are
Yes.
incredible. That battle is incredible. It's my
I know.
favorite acting of
So
theirs
good.
for all of it. Yeah. So I
think-
love that episode.
I think we quote that episode all the time.
Me
all
too.
the time.
They don't know. We know. They know. We know.
Right. Or that's not my first time. We say that in our family all the time. That's like one of our favorite quotes. It's not my first time.
Or I always say from that one, I couldn't if I wanted to. So, Joe, you better not say anything.
Couldn't if I wanted
Couldn't if I
to.
wanted to.
If you're younger than us, you should go watch that episode.
Yes, Netflix.
It's amazing.
Oh, that's funny. I should rewatch Friends. I should really do that. I haven't rewatched it in a while, but I think I'm due. So.
Well, I broke my
least
ankle
the
last
best ones.
fall, and I was literally having to elevate my leg like 4 hours a day on my
Oh,
couch.
no.
And I was
no.
brain dead. I was writing a book and then recovering from this ankle break. So I didn't do what other people would do, which is like a Netflix binge of all of the shows I never watch. I just kept
yeah.
rewatching Friends. I felt
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
guilty about it. I'm like laying there watching episode after episode, elevating my foot, but I had no energy for anything new. It was just like
Yeah.
a total comfort
Yes.
food experience.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yep.
that's so silly.
what
And my
Friends
running
is.
partner is a big Friends fan too, so we send each other gifts all the time.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
That's fun. Oh, that's fun. Can you? I don't know if you can tell us, but you've mentioned that you're writing a book. I'm just curious. What is your new book going to be about? Can you tell us?
Yes. So it comes
Okay.
out next year. It's Tarcher Peregree, which is a imprint of Penguin Random House. And we haven't revealed the title yet, so I won't do it yet, but it's all about homeschooling. It's basically, all about parent and child learning in the home. It applies not only to
Yes.
homeschoolers, but even people who after school or are working with their kids with their homework. But it's about nurturing that context for learning. And it's everything I believe. It's all the things I've learned over the last 25 years of being in the homeschooling world. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward to getting it out there. It feels like a practical manifesto of what I think about home education and parenting.
Very
Yeah.
nice. I cannot wait.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it comes
that'll
out
be great.
in February. Already it's less than a year, so that feels exciting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, Julie, we would love to have you tell our listeners where they can find you on the internet, and maybe if there's anything in particular that you want to highlight. I know you're a lot of places, so
Oh,
if there's anything in
thanks.
particular you want to highlight, that'd be great.
Well, you, of course, can start with bravewriter.com. We have a blog that's got thousands of articles and Friday free write prompts. We also have a website called poetryteatime.com, which is filled with recipes and poetry recommendations and a few free guides you can download that help you look up books in the library or learn what poetry tea time is. So there's free stuff in both those places. I would love you to follow me on Instagram. My Instagram account is Julie Bravewriter. I share all kinds of stuff there, but about writing, homeschooling, my children, just all things pertaining to writing and homeschool life. And we are also on Pinterest and Twitter and goodness, everything. You're right about that.
YouTube.
Yes,
oh goodness,
so
yeah.
many great videos.
Yeah, my YouTube channel, youtube.com/bravewriter, has I think 200 videos on it, and people often just go there and binge watch those. And then if you are looking for a deeper dive, real support in developing your own journey with an academic style of education, join the Homeschool Alliance. It is my coaching community. We have webinars every month. We focus on everything from sibling rivalry to planning your school year to brain-based learning. We focus on specific subjects. Last month, we had a poetry workshop with a professional poet. We spoke with someone about neurological connections and taking breaks in a previous month, and what to do with kids who are struggling with learning disabilities another month. So that's a place where if you really want a hands-on sort of education in homeschooling, that's a great place to come.
Yes, very, very good. And I know on Facebook, you've done these live videos of snippets of your Gracious Space book.
Yes.
Right? And are those on YouTube?
Some of them are, yes. I think the fall YouTube ones are there, and then the ones for winter are on the Homeschool Alliance. You can get to that just by going to bravewriter.com and scrolling down for the Homeschool Alliance. And we have Facebook Live every Monday morning at 11:30 Eastern. That's free on our Facebook page, which is a way for me to just kind of encourage people a half hour a week.
Yeah, I would say to anybody who's having a bad homeschool day, just go find Julie on YouTube or Facebook, and you will feel so much better.
Yep.
So, Julie, thank you so much for being here, because really you have been really profoundly influential in our own homeschooling journeys, and you have made me feel in so many ways, I can do this. I can do this.
Yep.
Well, I'm so glad that you invited me. You're both delightful, and I look forward to interacting with your community.
Great.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Julie.
Well, that was amazing.
That was so good. I loved it so much.
It was all I hoped it would be.
Yeah.
So great.
It was so good.
I mean, everything she says it just speaks to my heart, I feel like. So
Yeah. Yeah, and if you have not followed Julie before, you should go definitely check out her YouTube channel or her podcast. She's just so encouraging, just like she was today. She's like that all the time. So if you need a shot of encouragement, definitely go listen to her.
She's the person to go find, definitely.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Loving This Week.
Sounds good. Maren, what are you loving this week?
I am loving a movie. It is called Queen of Katwe.
Okay.
And it is about a Ugandan girl who is living in the slums, and she becomes a chess champion.
Huh. Wow.
It is so inspiring. And we watched it as a family. My mom told us about it.
Okay.
She just said, you need to watch this with your family. It was so good. And she was right.
Is it a true story?
It is a true story.
Okay.
Yes.
So is it like a documentary or
No.
is it?
No.
Okay.
It's a story. I mean,
There are actors who are portraying
exactly.
her story. Okay.
But so well made. And it was I just felt so happy that my kids were watching this.
Oh.
Because every person could relate to this girl.
Yeah.
Even though she lives across the world, in a completely different lifestyle than us. Completely different. I mean, and we all just felt so close to her. We just felt like we knew her so well. So, because we all feel the way she felt about, not believing, not sure if she should believe in herself, and not believing that, all these good things should be happening to her. And I mean, it was just really awesome.
Yeah. I want more movies like that to be able to show my kids and to watch together. So if you guys out there know any more, I'm writing this one down, but I would love to hear more that are just like this.
I need more too, because I do feel like, my oldest loved this movie, and it's getting harder to find movies that she loves that I feel comfortable with her watching.
Yeah.
And so I felt like this was such a big win for her, especially.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yes.
We are definitely going to watch that one.
Good. You'll love it. It's on Netflix.
Even better.
I know.
Perfect. Easy to find.
It just keeps getting better.
Yeah, that's
All
awesome.
right. Angela, what are you loving this week?
Well, I am loving a book, and I Instagrammed about this, so if you follow us on Instagram, you maybe have seen it. It's called The Sun is Also a Star by
Yes.
Nicola Yoon. And we actually saw her a couple weeks ago at a young YA author event, and she was speaking, and that's actually the first I'd ever heard of her. We went for Kate DiCamillo, who was awesome.
Yeah.
But then I, learned about Nicola Yoon, and I thought, I'm going to read this woman's books.
And wasn't it fun to hear her talk? I was compelled to read her things.
Yes, totally. Yeah, I was compelled. I was like, I have to do this.
Yeah.
And I had actually heard of The Sun is Also a Star and heard it was really good. So I was like, okay, I know this is going to be good. And I can tell I already like her. She writes about diverse characters. So this book has, it's about teenage love, which I am here for. Totally here for.
Which is so interesting because I'm like, really? Again, another? So,
oh, no.
Because I think, oh, gosh, I don't think I'm going to get into this book.
Oh, no.
But
did you read it?
No.
No, okay. Not
but
yet.
I do feel like there have been some other teenage movie or love stories you've told me to read. And I've gone in very half-hearted and loved them.
Yeah. So this reminded me of Eleanor and Park, which I told you about, and you liked.
That's another one that I love.
I know, and I was like, I gotta read Eleanor and Park again.
Yeah.
But this was so good too. I mean, it was just, the writing was incredible. It was, like I said, it was about immigration. There were diverse characters, and it was about teenage love. I don't know. You can't get any better than that. It was so good.
Great.
Yeah. So I read that in about a day. I think when we had the big snowstorm.
Oh, yeah.
We had a big snowstorm and there was nothing to do. So I read it. It's easy to read. It's YA. So you can get through it in a day. And then I read her next book called Everything, Everything, which is also really good. It wasn't as good. I mean, I loved The Sun is Also a Star. I also loved Everything, Everything, just not as quite much. I would start with The Sun is Also a Star.
Okay. So that was the big.
That was my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah, so good. And I think I read that it's going to be a movie. So maybe we'll have to go see it. I'm remembering. Did I also have you read The Fault in Our Stars and then we went to the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we see the movie? Yeah, we must have.
I went to the movie.
I read the book based on your recommendation.
Yeah,
and
that was another good one. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were the two I was thinking of, actually.
Yeah. This is like that. It might even be a little better.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm interested in all the things surrounding that love story. So definitely, I'm on board with it. I'm on board with it for sure.
Yeah.
I won't be able to read it as fast as you, though, even if there were a snowstorm.
Yeah.
I do not read books as fast as you.
That's okay. Well, thank you everybody for listening. We appreciate it so much. And we will put links to everything that we talked about today, all of Julie's links and everything in our show notes, and they will be on our website, which is homeschoolunrefined.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Homeschool Unrefined. We do have a closed Facebook group called Unrefined Homeschoolers. We'd love to have you there. We have some great conversations about homeschooling and other things, and we'd love to have you. And I think that's it. So thanks for listening.
Homeschool Unrefined was created by Maren Gorse and Angela Sizer. Thanks to Gambler's Daughter for providing the music for our show. You can find Gambler's Daughter at facebook.com/gamblersdaugghtermusic.